Yubiest. Let's talk a little bit more about the DOT, on duty, off duty, all that good stuff. Let's talk DOT time. Yubiest of the tubiest, the best YouTube subscribers on the planet. That's you, and I'm 50 plus. So I'm going to do a quick little tutorial, so to speak. Maybe shed a little light on DOT time. One of the Yubiest, and Danny, I hope I'm getting your last name correct, but I think it's Stranahan. Anyways, we were talking about the mentoring phase, where this, I believe, is just a the perception of mentors and students never doing a team driving type of situation. That is a lot of people don't like it. They think that it's not the right thing to do. And to be quite honest with you, those people have a biased, closed off mentality about it. They just really aren't thinking about it in depth. They're just, first off the bandwagon say don't do it. So that's the fastest way to get it in here that it's not a good thing to do. Not saying that that's what Danny's perception is, because we're not even going to talk about that necessarily. But that's what the topic was, okay? But his response made me want to make this video, because his response was a skewed view of DOT time. And I know that he's not a driver, because if he was, he absolutely would not have made those comments. It's just, he is interested in trucking, and he's interested at least enough to know, that much about the DOT regulations. Is when it comes to duty status. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about that and help him to, and in essence, help you to be able to be a little bit more informed when you make decisions, like topics pertaining to mentoring phases and stuff like that. It very well may be that he's going to school, become a driver here pretty soon. So I'm going to give you some insight. Okay, so what he said was, I think the student and mentor training should never team drive. The whole point is for the trainer to be trained, and a mentor cannot train if they're, I'm gonna open it up a little bit, if they're in the sleeper, basically. And then he says, if the trainer feels that he can sleep while the student is driving, then the student needs to get their own truck. In the comment, or in my video, I said, if anybody don't, think that the student and mentor process, once the student gets to a point where the student can actually solo drive, then is that when they're supposed to stop driving with each other and just omit a team driving situation altogether and get his own truck. And that's basically what he's saying, that's when it's time, when they can drive and the mentor feels like the student can drive by themselves, then they shouldn't team drive. And I'll respect that. Also, Tad said the same thing. If a mentor feels like the student is ready to drive, they shouldn't team drive. He just give him his own truck. And Tad, I respect yours as well. Tad also gave me some some information on the Garmin. I know this is off topic, but I did want to make sure that I mentioned this to Tad. I have a Garmin diesel. I think it's called a 780. And the problem is, I'll put an address in there, and the Garmin can't find it. I can find it on Google easy, but you can't put it in there. And he gave me a little tip on putting in the city first or something like that. I'm gonna try that the next time. But Tad, I may hit you up, in another feed if I can't get it to work. You might be able to help me out on that. Okay. So back to the Danny's situation here. He said there's a student. He said, this is Danny again. He says the student and the trainer need to log the same hours, because if the trainer is going to drive after the student is done driving, that means the trainer needs to be in the sleeper more than 8 consecutive hours sleeping. So there's no way the trainer can train a student on tying down a load at the same time the student is supposed to be sleeping. That was very confusing the way he worded that. But he says because at some point somebody's clock is going to get screwed up, and they're not going to be able to do legal team anyways. I kind of lost him in the wording there, but I got enough to where when he was saying 8 hours consecutive sleep, those type of situations make me, think about that a little bit. Steven says that he and his mentor had some team driving a few times at the end of the week, and he said it was a benefit to their run for their clocks, and it is. Okay, so let's just Danny last time, and then I'm gonna talk about Danny. Okay, 50 plus. My understanding is that before you can drive, they have to have a minimum of 8 consecutive hours in the sleeper. So how can the trainer be in the sleeper for how can he be 8 consecutive hours in the sleeper? There's no way they can train to tie down. That's what he was saying. And then that it's not legal. Basically, what he was thinking is that there's they can't team drive because they have to be on the clock at the same time. And then I think what he's believing is that once the mentor goes to the sleeper, that he has to stay in the sleeper 8 hours before he can help the student or teach the student anything or whatever, because that will be performing work. And technically it is performing work, but there's a lot of skewed information there, Danny, that you don't really understand 100%. And the first thing is I want you to understand that there is a difference between day cab rules and sleeper cab rules. They're different, okay? If two people are in two drivers and they are both CDL holders, then they are both subject to DOT rules, okay? That's FMCSA. So if they're in a day cab, meaning there's no bunk, they both must be on duty. So in that sense, you're right. But in that sense, the trainer ain't going to the sleeper because there is no sleeper. Okay. And because there's no sleeper, that's why that rule is that way. They both have to be on duty because they are both performing work. They're in the front seat. So, sleeper cab rules is different. In a sleeper cab, if the driver A he goes on duty, driver B can stay off duty, and driver B can sit in the passenger seat while driver B is driving up to the first 2 hours of driver A's shift. At that point, driver B must vacate that passenger seat and go to the bunk, okay? Because the truck's moving, he can't sit there, okay? Doesn't say that he has to go to sleep. Doesn't say that he can't communicate or talk to the driver A. He could be sitting in a bunk, coaching him through a backing maneuver, but not be in that passenger seat. He can actually get out of the truck, go in the front, and guide that student or driver A, into the bunk. Okay, into the bunk, into the parking spot. He can back him in there, can talk, left, right, and all that good stuff. Stop, you're about to hit something, whatever. And that is perfectly legal. That is not considered performing work, okay? Not by DOT rules. That's not performing work. So he does not have to go on duty to get out and help his partner back, okay? That is not correct, okay? And then what would happen is, once the driver B, and let's just leave mentor out of it. Let's just say these are people who are team driving. Okay? They both have 25 years of experience and they're team driving. It's a husband and wife. They're team driving. The wife's backing up. The husband can go out there and guide them in. Okay? There is no rule against that. They're driving flatbed, and the wife pulls up to the shipper, handles everything, and she's throwing straps, and the co-driver decides to get out and throw some bungees on the tarp. Where's the problem? Okay, so you can muddy the waters. You can say, well, that's still performing work, and technically they aren't supposed to be doing that. I'm going to tell you right now, it happens every single day. That's a fact. That is a fact. Is that person technically performing work? Yeah. But if you cannot, don't build up this box for yourself and say nothing outside of these strict 100% solid flatline rule can be broken, because you will not make it. You won't make it. The lines are bloody. The lines are blurred in many ways, or else you will not be successful out here, okay? And that happens. Teams do a whole lot of stuff worse than that is, actual DOT illegal, but they do it, okay? And it's sometimes necessary to get the load on time or get it there safely, or whatever. It happens, okay? So don't get it twisted. Well, let's talk about what the rules really state. And the rules is the mentor once, put it to you this way, once the company rules of how long the mentor needs to be in the front seat, once we are beyond that, the company that I was with, it was 50 hours, okay? Once you get beyond that, then you are free to go to what is DOT team rules, which is sleeper cab rules, and the mentor does not have to be on duty. So let's just say he's in the bunk, okay, and the student is driving. The student can perform the job, go to the shipper, handles everything, but technically, if you go by the standard that you were explaining in your comment, if the co-driver says, hey, am I supposed to go on duty to walk in to the shipper? And if driver B says, yeah, you have to log on duty for that, technically answering that question is work. If you go by that, flatline, unwavering rule. That's why it won't ever work that way, okay? It's just not how, that's not what the rule is meant for. Okay, so the way DOT clocks look, okay, that 8 consecutive hours that you were thinking about, the first 8 hours is a on-duty clock, okay? That 8 hours is the amount of hours that a driver can be on duty before they have to take a 30-minute break. After they take a 30-minute break, let's just say they worked 8 consecutive hours. They'll take a 30-minute break. After that 30-minute break, they have 3 more hours where they can perform work, giving them a total of 11 hours. After 11 hours, because that's going to be another clock. See, the first clock is 8 hours. Second hour is 11. And you get to see how much time you have left in those as you go, as the day progresses. In that, you got 11 hours that you can work that day before you must take a 10-hour consecutive, unbroken 10-hour rest off duty before you can start performing work again, okay? In that, with that 11 hours that you have that you can perform work, DOT, FMCSA says that you have 14 hours from the first minute that you're on duty for the day will start a 14-hour window for you to perform 11 hours of work. So you have 3 hours of wiggle room in there to break that 11 up, including that 30-minute break. Okay, so technically you got 2.5, okay, of 3 hours there to play with off duty time. Okay, so there is another method, okay, and it's called a split sleeper, where technically your statement would have been correct with 8 consecutive hours in the sleeper, but you wouldn't get a full clock back. When you do that, you're only going to get back the remaining hours of on duty time you have, and then you will also have the remaining 14 that you have, whatever you had left. It is extremely confusing to try to grasp the 8-2 split sleeper. And please don't start commenting down there. I'm gonna delete it. I don't care that you know what 8-2 split sleeper is. Don't do that, because it confuses people. And most of the time when people comment down there on the 8-2 split sleeper, they don't know what they're talking about. It is extremely confusing, because it also depends on how much, not just how much of your 11 that you have retained the day before, but also the 14. And then you're going to get 2 hours of 2 more hours out of that, how that 8-2 split sleeper works. If you do that second 2 hours, you don't always get back a full clock. So don't start commenting down there about 8-2 split. I'm just going to delete your comment, because I don't want anybody to be confused about that. If you're listening to this video and I'm me trying to explain to you how a two split. I mean, how a DOT clock works with a student and a mentor. An A2 split sleeper is not going to benefit this subject anyway. Okay, so Danny, it's not 8 hours. It's 10. You got to have 10 consecutive hours in the bunk before you can then go back on duty and get your clocks regenerated. Okay, and if you were for some reason thinking of a 2 split, it does not work very well at all when you're team driving, and it's useless when you have a team. That's the point of it, okay, of team driving. Okay, so the bottom line is, you know, people will defend their position of no team driving with a mentor, and they will not have a legitimate argument, even if when they say, if a driver, Dad said, if you're team driving, if you're with a mentor and the mentor feels like you can team drive, that you can go solo, that you need to upgrade right then and go get your own truck, that is a pretty strong stance. But basically what you're saying is that student can get off of that truck and go team drive with someone else, but they just can't do it with the mentor. For some reason, they need a different body, a different person to sit in a sleeper while they're driving. And if that wasn't true, my statement wasn't true, then there would be no such thing as a team drive. Husband and wife do it all the time. Team drive does work. And, guys can come up with any defense they want to their argument that, that mentors and students shouldn't drive, shouldn't team drive, and they have no legitimate argument. There is no legitimate argument. That's why everybody do it, because there's no good defense against it. Excuse me. That's not coronavirus. I just, swallowed something there. So, don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. But I want you to learn what DOT clocks mean. Okay, I kind of skewed the lines a little bit here in this video, but I do have videos about DOT clocks, and if you have specific questions about it, put those down there and we'll talk about it, but not 8-2 split sleep. I will not talk about that because it's just, you guys are not ready for that. Once you get solo and you learn how to manipulate that DOT clock, use it for everything it's worth, then you can start doing something like 8-2 split. But you have to understand what DOT clocks really mean, okay? And it's clear that Danny is learning. He's getting there. But I wanted to clarify some things, okay? They do not have to be on duty at the same time. A driver A and driver B, they do not have to be on duty at the same time. 2 hours into the first part of their shift, of driver A's shift, after 2 hours and 1 minute, the driver B has to go to the bunk. He has to actually log on to the computer and put himself off duty, go to the bunk. He can or be off duty the whole time if he wants, but if he's off duty, he cannot sit in the passenger seat longer than 2 hours into driver A's shift. He can then return to the passenger seat 2 hours before his own shift starts. Okay? But in between, they can't. If you think I'm wrong, then try it. Get you driver A, get in that seat, driver B, get in that seat, drive for 3 hours, go to a DOT weigh station, get inspected, and see if you get put out of service or not. I don't recommend it, but you can try it if you think I'm wrong, okay? If you guys have any more questions about the DOT clocks, let me know, man. I'm gonna try to, answer them as good as I can. But that really, his questions really kind of concerned me about what he thought DOT regulations and sleeper rules and team driving rules or co-driver rules or student mentor rules really worked. And so I hope that I shedded some light on there. And by the way, it's the same. Doesn't matter if a team. It's either day cab rules or it's team rules or sleeper rules. I'm sorry. Day cab rules or sleeper rules. Doesn't matter if you're a team or if you're a mentor student, or doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's two ways you can look at it. Does that truck have a sleeper? Yes or no? Are the 2 occupants in that vehicle, or 3 or 4 or 10 occupants in that vehicle, a licensed CDL holder? And then they will all be subject to DOT rules and DOT clocks, and they have to be put into that system. Okay, so I hope I helped you out a little bit. Until I see you again, deliver undistracted, and here's your boop. Boop.